February 17, 1941, 0030 hours. A German U-boat, U-101, fires a single torpedo and sends the British cargo ship SS Gairsoppa to the bottom of the Atlantic. 85 crew members go down, and the ship's manifest officially lists the cargo as general stores and pig iron. What Ministry of Defense records never disclosed was that the 412-foot freighter was not carrying ordinary wartime supplies. Instead, she was transporting 7 million ounces of silver bullion worth $210 million in today's currency. That silver had been secretly looted from the Bank of India to finance Britain's collapsing war economy. For 70 years, families believed their loved ones died, protecting routine military cargo during a standard convoy operation. The wreck, discovered in 2011, tells a radically different story. Evidence scattered across 15,400 feet of ocean floor reveals specialized bullion storage vaults and security systems that had no place aboard a merchant vessel. Recently declassified Treasury documents expose a precious metals smuggling operation so secret that even Churchill's war cabinet concealed the true value from Parliament. What colonial wealth was worth sacrificing 85 British sailors? And why did the government spend 7 decades hiding a treasure ship in plain sight? Part 1. Operation Silverroot, the colonial extraction machine. The answer lies in what British Treasury officials codenamed Operation Silverroot, a classified program that systematically extracted precious metals from the Bank of India reserves between 1940 and 1942. The Gairsoppa was not an anomaly. She was just one vessel in a secret fleet transporting silver and other colonial wealth to Britain's coffers. Declassified documents reveal that while Churchill rallied Britain with speeches about fighting on the beaches, his government was busy stripping India's financial reserves. The 7 million ounces of silver bullion aboard the Gairsoppa represented just one shipment in a broader extraction of 26 million pounds in Indian precious metals, equivalent to billions in today's currency. What makes this operation particularly disturbing is its timing. As these silver shipments departed Indian ports, the first signs of what would become the catastrophic Bengal famine were already emerging. By 1943, this famine would claim 3 million Indian lives. The silver that could have purchased emergency food supplies was instead funding Britain's war machine. Treasury records show India received no war bonds, no promises of repayment, no formal recognition of this contribution. This was not wartime alliance or even forced requisition. It was colonial theft, disguised as imperial resource management. The sailors aboard vessels like the Gairsoppa believed they were protecting vital war supplies. In reality, they were unknowing participants in one of history's largest colonial wealth transfers. Britain concealed the Gairsoppa's cargo for 7 decades because acknowledging the silver meant confronting a damning truth. While Churchill's government portrayed itself as civilization's defender, it was simultaneously extracting wealth from a colony where millions would soon starve. The ship was not just carrying silver, it was carrying evidence of imperial exploitation that Britain could never acknowledge without undermining its wartime moral authority. The specialized bullion storage vaults discovered on the Gairsoppa's wreckage reveal the operation's scale and planning. These were not hastily arranged compartments, but purpose-built secure facilities designed for high-value cargo transport. The security systems, advanced for their time, included specialized locks, reinforced bulkheads, and armed guards whose presence was omitted from official crew manifests. Most tellingly, the Ministry of War Transport classified the Gairsoppa not as a standard merchant vessel, but as a controlled service ship, a designation that placed it under direct government authority rather than commercial shipping regulations. This allowed both heightened security and complete operational secrecy. The timeline of events leading to the Gairsoppa's sinking reveals the systematic nature of Britain's colonial extraction. When war broke out in September 1939, the British Treasury immediately began assessing its colony's resource potential. India, with its substantial gold and silver reserves, became a primary target. By June 1940, with the fall of France and Britain facing potential invasion, Churchill's government accelerated what it euphemistically called emergency requisition of colonial assets. The Bank of England, working through the Reserve Bank of India, began identifying bullion reserves that could be transferred to London. Naval historian Richard Woodman's research shows that in August 1940, British Treasury officials authorized the first major silver requisition from the Bank of India's Bombay vaults. The operation was conducted with unprecedented secrecy, with documentation classified under the highest security protocol, most secret, imperial priority. By November 1940, the first silver shipments were already departing Bombay under military escort. What is particularly damning is that these shipments coincided with the first signs of food shortages in Bengal, as British authorities diverted food supplies and transportation resources to military purposes. The Gairsoppa's journey began in January 1941. Loading operations occurred exclusively at night, with dockworkers sworn to secrecy under wartime regulations. The ship's manifest officially listed general cargo and pig iron, but separate classified documentation revealed its true contents: 7 million ounces of silver bullion in 2,817 standardized bars. On February 11, 1941, the Gairsoppa departed India as part of convoy SL-64, a group of merchant vessels traveling under naval protection. The convoy system provided safety in numbers, but it also served another purpose for Operation Silver Route: anonymity. Amidst dozens of vessels carrying legitimate war supplies, the silver ships could travel unnoticed. The fatal decision came on February 16th, when the Gairsoppa, running low on coal during a violent Atlantic storm, broke from the convoy. Captain Richard Ayres later testified that he believed continuing with the convoy would have exhausted fuel supplies before reaching port. His decision to proceed independently sealed the ship's fate, sending it directly into the hunting grounds of the German submarine U-101. Meanwhile, in India, conditions continued to deteriorate. By early 1941, British authorities had implemented policies redirecting food production toward military needs and export crops. These policies, combined with the systematic draining of financial reserves that could have purchased emergency food imports, created the perfect conditions for the famine that would soon devastate Bengal. Part 3, February 17, 1941. The night the silver sank. The final hours of the SS Gairsoppa read like a wartime thriller, but with colonial exploitation as the hidden subplot. By 11 p.m. on February 16th, the merchant vessel was completely alone in heavy Atlantic seas, having broken from convoy SL 64 hours earlier. Nautical records indicate the Gairsoppa was struggling against 70-knot winds and massive swells, making serpentine progress toward the Irish coast. Unknown to Captain Hyland, submarine U-101, commanded by Ernst Mengerson, was patrolling precisely these waters after receiving intelligence about scattered convoy vessels. At 12:15 a.m. on February 17th, the hydrophone operator on U-101 detected the unmistakable sound of a merchant vessel's engines. Mengerson ordered his submarine to surface for visual confirmation, a standard German tactic in the early war years, when submarines could still operate on the surface with relative impunity. Survivor accounts later revealed that the Gairsoppa's lookouts, battling near zero visibility in the storm, never spotted the surface submarine. By 12:25 a.m., Mengerson had confirmed his target, an isolated British freighter without escort protection, the perfect prey for his hunting pattern. At precisely 12:30 a.m., the submarine U-101 fired a single torpedo that struck the Gairsoppa's starboard side near the engine room. The impact was catastrophic, but what happened next has puzzled naval historians. Survivors reported a secondary explosion significantly larger than the torpedo's initial impact. Modern analysis suggests this was likely caused by the specialized Bullion storage compartment security systems. These included emergency scuttling charges designed to sink the vessel quickly if capture seemed imminent, a standard precaution for ships carrying high-value cargo. Ironically, this security measure likely accelerated the sinking, giving the crew minimal time to evacuate. By 12:45 a.m., with the Gairsoppa listing severely, Captain Hyland ordered all hands to abandon ship. The vessel was carrying 8 lifeboats, but in the chaos and darkness, only 3 were successfully launched. Of these, 2 immediately capsized in the violent seas. The 3rd lifeboat, commanded by Second Officer Richard Ayres, managed to clear the sinking vessel with 8 men aboard. By 1:20 a.m., the Gairsoppa had disappeared beneath the Atlantic, taking 84 crew members and 7 million ounces of colonial silver to the ocean floor. What followed was one of the war's most remarkable survival stories. For 13 days, heirs navigated the lifeboat through winter Atlantic conditions toward the Irish coast. By the time a coastal patrol discovered them, only Ayres himself had survived the ordeal. His subsequent testimony at the Admiralty inquiry carefully omitted any mention of the silver cargo, evidence of how thoroughly the operation had been compartmentalized, even from the ship's officers. German naval records later revealed that Commander Mengersen never knew what he had actually sunk. U-101's war diary simply recorded that one enemy merchant vessel, approximately 5,000 tons, was torpedoed and sunk. The silver treasure's existence remained as hidden from Germany as it was from the British public. The sinking of the Gairsoppa triggered an immediate classification operation that would remain active for 7 decades. Within hours of receiving Ayres' report, Admiralty officials issued a most secret directive reclassifying all documentation related to the vessel's cargo. 85 families who lost loved ones aboard the Gairsoppa received the standard Admiralty telegram. It read, "We regret to inform you that His Majesty's ship Gairsoppa has been lost at sea while performing vital war service." What those telegrams never mentioned was the nature of that vital service, transporting colonial wealth, while Britain publicly claimed to be fighting for democracy and freedom. In India, Bank of India records pertaining to the silver transfer were systematically removed from circulation. Historian William Dalrymple uncovered evidence that British officials ordered the destruction or classification of all documentation linking Indian silver reserves to the war financing effort. This extended to removing references in the bank's annual accounting ledgers, creating a paper gap that would conceal the missing silver. The financial dimension of the cover-up was equally comprehensive. Lloyd's of London records show that Britain claimed and received the insurance payout for the Gairsoppa's silver, approximately £1.2 million, while simultaneously concealing India's rightful claim to this compensation. These funds were channeled directly into Britain's war treasury, never appearing in any colonial accounts or reparations documentation. Perhaps most conveniently for the British government, India's 1947 partition eliminated any straightforward claim to the lost silver. The newly formed governments of India and Pakistan, dealing with the immediate chaos of independence and partition, had neither the resources nor the historical documentation to pursue claims for wartime resource extraction. Post-war inquiries into merchant marine losses deliberately omitted details of bullion cargo from public reports. The official history of British merchant shipping during the war, published in 1957, describes the Gairsoppa's cargo simply as general stores and materials. That was a fabrication maintained in all subsequent historical accounts until the wreck's discovery. What makes this cover-up particularly effective was its simplicity. Rather than creating elaborate false narratives, British authorities simply omitted key information from all public records. The silver became a bureaucratic ghost, present in classified treasury calculations, but absent from every public accounting of the war effort. This institutional silence extended to salvage operations. Despite the Gairsoppa's known approximate location, information available from both Ayres' testimony and U-boat records, Britain conducted no significant search operations for 7 decades. The government that had been desperate enough for silver to risk ship and crew suddenly appeared entirely disinterested in recovering a fortune from the seafloor. The real reason becomes clear through declassified cabinet discussions from 1947. Any recovery operation would have required acknowledging the silver's Indian origin, and that would potentially open the door to colonial compensation claims that Britain's post-war economy could not sustain. Part 5. Rising from the deep, the truth surfaces. For 70 years, the Atlantic kept Britain's secret. Then, in 2010, Odyssey Marine Exploration began a deep water search that would finally expose the colonial extraction hidden beneath official wartime narratives. Working from recently declassified U-boat patrol records and Admiralty position reports, Odyssey deployed advanced deep-sea survey technology to map a search grid 300 miles southwest of Ireland. What they discovered in September 2011 was far more than a shipwreck. It was physical evidence of imperial exploitation preserved at 15,400 feet below the surface. The first remotely operated vehicle images revealed the Gairsoppa resting upright on the seafloor, its hull remarkably intact due to the extreme depth. What caught investigators' attention were the specialized compartments visible through breaks in the hull, reinforced rooms with security features inconsistent with standard merchant vessel design. By November 2011, recovery operations had retrieved the first silver bars, each stamped with the Bank of India seal and production dates from 1940. These physical artifacts provided irrefutable evidence of what declassified documents had only suggested: a systematic operation to transfer colonial wealth to metropolitan Britain. The scale of the recovery operation was unprecedented. By 2012, Odyssey Marine had recovered 1.4 million ounces of silver bullion, the largest precious metals recovery from a shipwreck in history. By the operation's completion in 2013, the total had reached 2.7 million ounces, valued at approximately $38 million. What makes the Gairsoppa recovery particularly significant is what it forced into public view. The physical presence of Indian silver bars could not be explained away with wartime generalities. Their recovery triggered the declassification of Operation Silver Route documents previously sealed under the 75-year rule for sensitive imperial matters. Those documents revealed that the Gairsoppa was just one vessel in a broader fleet transporting silver from India, South Africa, and other colonial territories. Between 1940 and 1943, over 190 million ounces of silver were transported from colonial holdings to Britain, enough to fund approximately 20% of Britain's entire war expenditure for those years. The Indian government's response was measured but significant. In 2014, officials formally requested a comprehensive accounting of wartime bullion extraction and the legal basis for these transfers. That request opened a diplomatic discussion about colonial economic relationships that Britain had successfully avoided for 7 decades. Historical vindication came from an unexpected source: the recovery operation's own documentation. Odyssey Marine's technical surveys revealed modifications to the Gairsoppa's design specifically intended for bullion transport, including reinforced storage compartments, specialized security systems, and dedicated guard quarters. These modifications required extensive shipyard work that could only have been authorized at the highest government levels, confirming the operation's official nature. Perhaps most significantly, the silver's recovery forced a historical reassessment of Britain's wartime financing. The traditional narrative of Britain standing alone against Nazi Germany has always emphasized the nation's financial sacrifice. The Gairsoppa's silver and the broader colonial extraction it represents reveal that this sacrifice was partially funded by colonial resources seized without compensation or consent. Part 6. Silver and Blood: The Hidden Economics of Empire. The SS Gairsoppa's silver represents more than monetary value. It illuminates the hidden economics of empire that sustained Britain's war effort. This system traded colonial lives for metropolitan survival in ways that wartime propaganda carefully concealed. The most damning parallel is temporal. As silver flowed from India to Britain in ships like the SS Gairsoppa, the Bengal famine was claiming thousands of lives daily. By 1943, when the famine reached its peak, an estimated 3 million Indians had perished, not primarily from crop failure, as long claimed, but from systematic resource misallocation. Economist Amartya Sen's groundbreaking research demonstrated that Bengal produced sufficient food during this period. What it lacked was purchasing power, the very silver reserves being systematically extracted to Britain. The 26 million pounds in precious metals transferred under Operation Silver Route could have purchased enough emergency food imports to prevent mass starvation. Churchill's documented response to reports of famine conditions reveals the imperial calculus at work. When informed of widespread starvation in 1943, he famously asked, "Why has Gandhi not died yet?" while continuing to requisition both food and financial reserves from the region. This connection between colonial extraction and metropolitan survival challenges fundamental narratives about Britain's finest hour. The nation's ability to continue fighting after the fall of France depended significantly on wealth extracted from colonies, wealth that those territories desperately needed for their own survival. The modern reparations debate gains new context through the Gairsoppa's silver. The recovered bullion, valued at $38 million, went entirely to Odyssey Marine and the British government under salvage laws that recognized the UK as the silver's legal owner, despite its Indian origin. This legal framework continues the colonial economic relationship 7 decades after independence. For the families of the 85 sailors who died aboard the Gairsoppa, The wreck's discovery brought complicated emotions. Their loved ones' sacrifice, long understood as protecting vital war materials, now appears in a more complex light as unwitting participants in colonial wealth extraction. Should they be honored as war heroes or acknowledged as victims of imperial economics? This historical reassessment extends beyond the Gairsoppa. How many other wartime sacrifices were made not for freedom or democracy, but for imperial economic structures? How much of Britain's celebrated wartime resilience was purchased with colonial resources and lives? The silver bars now recovered from the Gairsoppa bear physical witness to this complex history, each stamped with the Bank of India seal. They represent not just monetary value, but moral questions about how empires finance their survival, and at what human cost. Perhaps the most important legacy of the Gairsoppa's silver is historical honesty. By acknowledging that Britain's war effort was partially financed through colonial extraction, we gain a more complete understanding of how modern global power structures emerged from imperial economics. The treasure at the bottom of the Atlantic reveals not just what was taken, but what was sacrificed, on both sides of the imperial relationship. The colonial cost of victory. The SS Gairsoppa's silver was never Britain's to lose. The 85 sailors who died with this colonial treasure unwittingly gave their lives protecting wealth extracted while millions starved in Bengal. Their sacrifice reveals the hidden economics of empire, where metropolitan survival came at the cost of colonial suffering. For more investigations into maritime history's untold stories, subscribe to Ocean Attacks. What other sunken treasures carry the weight of imperial exploitation beneath the waves?